You're watching the Norfolk Southern Sherwood subdivision. I'm Harold. Thanks for joining us today. Today's video is about track planning for new industries. Before proceeding with the video, a little sidebar, and I found something very interesting that I didn't realize was true. We're going to use three different components from three different manufacturers. The track is Walthers track. This turnout is a microengineering turnout. This turnout is a Pico turnout. Now they're all code 83, so you would think fine, they're all compatible. Well, guess what? I could not find anywhere in the NMRA standards a standard for the height of the ties. So I measured it. Here's what I found. The Walthers ties are 1.5 millimeters in height, the same as the microengineering ties, but the Pico ties are 1.97 millimeters in height, which may not sound like a lot. So if we look very closely, I'm not sure you could pick this up. If we try to combine the Walthers track with the Pico turnout, you'll find that there is a little bit of a jump between the Pico turnout, which is higher, and the Walthers track. And the difference isn't the track size of the rail itself, the difference is actually in the ties. If you're going to mix components, as I am in this particular part of the layout, you better be aware of that, and you might need to put perhaps a small shim right here underneath your track to elevate it to the level of the turnout if that's where the difference lies. If you don't do that, you're relying strictly on your rail joiner to make up for that difference. And if the rail joiner starts to sag, you're going to get a bump there that you don't really want. So just a little sidebar telling you something that I found while I was doing this, and I hope you take this into consideration if you have this situation. Now, back to the main video. What we see right now are the new industries. The larger building is Martin Manufacturing. The smaller building is Richard's Foods. And they replace two industries that were here before that were less interesting and provided fewer operating opportunities. And you can see the old layout in this short video clip. The little two-track yard in front and a couple of industries that you've seen on other videos. The industries are followed by this big blank area. With the new industries placed approximately where I want them, the objective of today's exercise is to figure out how the track will go to serve these industries. And what we want to have is one track going down here to serve this building, and two tracks. One goes inside, one goes outside. So we're going to add three new tracks. We'll have two new turnouts, and we've already done a preliminary plan with our track planning software. And you can see that here. The track planning software that I use is CAD by Sandia Software. I'm very happy with it and have used it to design this entire layout. So, according to our plan, first thing we're going to do is insert a left-hand turnout right here. And somewhere down here goes a right-hand turnout, and there's a little gap here that you saw in the picture. The issue over here is clearance. Now, how do you figure out clearance? Well, you already have a tool to figure out clearance. The tool is your NMRA gauge. So we want to put the gauge in the track, and if it hits anything, you don't have enough clearance. We'll just slide it along the track. We want this as close as possible to this track without there being any obstruction. So we seem to have solved that situation right there. Let me move this out of the way. So we'll take a piece of track and we'll sort of put it in here to see how this looks. looks like that should be pretty good. The old track was on 2-inch centers, but once we added the building here, it was too close to this track. So that looks pretty good right there. Remember, we're doing planning here. This is not the final version necessarily. So we'll take some push pins just to get these things into place so they don't move around. And the reason I can do this is the surface is foam. So we'll put this track into its approximate position. And the only thing that occurs here is there's a slight bend in order to achieve the separation from the tracks that were existing. Now then, our next objective is to get a track going into the building. So we have, and we know we're going to need a curve here, so we have this sort of track piece that has a curve in it. And it's a little too long, so we'll just slide it under Richard's Foods for a moment. And approximately the second track that's going to go on the outside of Morton Manufacturing. So while track planning software is useful, what you might find is it's not useful down to the 1/10 of a quarter of an inch. So you may have to do an exercise like this. In order to get access to these two tracks, we're of course going to need a turnout. And here's our turnout. It's a right-hand turnout. And what we're going to see is we want a straight shot from the left-hand turnout that goes into here, and the branch that goes off the diverging route should go into here. So it looks like we're going to have to put the turnout approximately in this position. And we might have to chop a little bit off the head blocks to make it fit. So let's see. Yeah, that's not bad there. Okay, so we have that track. Now we have an important consideration. In order to do operations, what you don't want to have is a situation where your cars are coupling on a curve. So we want this part to be as straight as possible. So we're going to have to put a little curve in there. It's not going to be a real issue, I don't think, because we're going so slowly here that even an excessive curve will be fine. So about like that. Now, we have to check our clearances again. This track is too close, so we need to move it down a little bit so it doesn't hit the building. No, it's fine there. Let's see how we're doing with our turnout here. Okay. And this track we want to be right in the center of the building. It's approximately where it is right now. And we want to have a straight section so that we're not uncoupling on a curve. So that'll be about right there. Now, one more thing, which is clearance between tangent tracks. NMRA standard is for tangent tracks, minimum clearance 2 inches. Let's see. Oh, we have 2.5 inches there, so we're fine. How about here? We have a little more than 2 inches, so we're fine. So these look like approximately good positions for our new track. So we'll give them a little mark. on the outside of the ties because that's where we're going to put the latex caulk that holds it down. We didn't want that to move, did we? And once again, thinking about the characteristics of this area, it's not a main line. So if the track's a little bit wobbly, that'll be okay. What we have done now is we have converted our theoretical design coming from our software into a practical application that shows where the tracks will go and how they will fit into our new structures. So the next step will be to actually install the tracks. One thing we're going to have to, well, you'd always have to be, we're going to use tortoise switch machines, which means we better have some room underneath to do that. Let's see if we do. Stick my hand under here. It looks like we have sufficient clearance right here. And we do the same over here, and there are no structural members in the way. So that's good news. If that had been not true, we're using Alberta construction. What we would have done was loosen the joists and move them around, which is, I think, a significant advantage of Alberta construction in that it's flexible. If you're using other types of construction like open grid, it might be more difficult to do that. So it looks like we're going to be okay. So I'll finish up here drawing some more lines so we know where things go. Gotta make sure we know where the throw bar is for the turnouts, because there is going to be a large hole that needs to be cut there. That concludes today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like videos of this type, or perhaps some of our operations videos, which by the way will be improved because now we'll have more operating opportunities, please consider subscribing to this channel. If you have comments or questions, please record them below. And we thank you for watching the Norfolk Southern Sherwood subdivision.